we think about now, companies focus so much on the technology, building out the algorithms, building out the data sets, making sure that they understood what the data sets were going to evolve and labeling them. But now we're kind of seeing the consequences of not paying the attention to the outcomes of that from an ethical perspective. We see recommender systems that are proposing self-harm content. We see credit card limits being changed depending on gender. We see facial recognition is not working as good for certain races. So when I think about ethical AI, it's starting to safeguard against that biased data and those models. So providing assurance and that the automated decision is going to be fair and just. We're also seeing a lot more attention coming out from government bodies. We've got the European Commission and we've got the White House, and they're really pushing this to the forefront that we are going to spend and pay more attention to ethics, and it's finally getting the attention that it warrants. But as always, we can do more. As long as we continue to promote the importance of it and we continue to push that within our own companies, I think that'll be a certain progress in terms of ethics. I suppose when we think about the industry itself, we need to think about trustworthy AI and that it encompasses more than just ethics. It must be lawful, robust and ethical. So the EU regulators approved the Artificial Intelligence Regulation Act just there last December. So we would be expecting to see that coming into kind of passing towards the end of the year or early next year. So everybody must be aware of what that's going to entail. And the key is everybody involved must understand AI outcomes is built on data that may not reflect reality and may not reflect society, and that models are designed by humans so that they could have human bias embedded in them. The designer behind the systems need to ensure that it behaves in a fair and just manner to all of society. And then I think when we take a look at the ethical guidelines for trustworthy AI released by the European Commission, they cover 4 principles which really encompasses what we should be looking at in terms of ethical AI. It's the principle for human autonomy. It shouldn't coerce, deceive or manipulate people. It's the prevention of harm, so protection of human dignity as well as mental and physical safety. And then the principles of fairness. Fairness is quite subjective, but at a high level it should be equal and just distribution of both benefits and costs and equal opportunity in terms of access to education, goods and services. And then finally, I suppose the principle of explicability. It's really important for people to trust the system if they can explain it. It's not good enough to say the system said no. At the end of the day, the company needs to be in a position to understand, explain and own the outcome of the AI they've designed. We expect technology to be neutral. We expect it to be unbiased and impartial. It doesn't have feelings or emotions despite what you might actually hear. At the end of the day, AI is just code. It learns patterns from the data it's applied and the models designed by the development team. And although we're very talented and experienced designers and developers creating the AI, the problem is if they're all too similar, the data that's being used is built in bias and it leads to unintended bias. Think about a mortgage company 30 years ago. The people applying for a loan 30 years ago are very different customer base to what it is today. Now we have more people moving across countries. We have more balanced earnings in terms of gender. So if the models are based on data from traditional mortgage holders over the past few years, it inherits a stereotype as to who should get that loan, and therefore it'll replicate and embed the biases that are already in society. But if we can get a more diverse base working in STEM, we have access to much more perspectives. And it can't be just about diversity in gender or ethnicity. It should include cultures and religion, different socioeconomic backgrounds, so that we have a broader representation checking each other's biases, and then we should end up with a balanced and fair AI solution. There's a saying, you can't be what you can't see. Well, it's the same for AI. We can't see the biases unless we have that diversity in there. AI has the potential to be a force for good in many areas. So technology is everywhere. So even if we don't build it, the technology is something that we interact on a daily basis, and AI has huge benefits that it can bring to many businesses and jobs. So the advantage of it is the ability to process huge volumes of data and output meaningful and consumable insights. It's available 24/7 and it does very well at performing repetitive and menial tasks that nobody else has any interest in doing. So take a look at the medical profession. The ability of the AI to scan millions of x-rays and predict a potential conclusion. It's a factor for the medical practitioner to consider. They wouldn't have the time or the scale to compare the volume of data on their own, but they can use the AI scan result as another factor to consider in a diagnosis. AI can have huge societal benefits when we look at how it's being used today to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's supporting forecasting climate change. It's supporting zero hunger by predicting crop yields. It's optimizing energy systems to reduce carbon emissions. So when AI is done right, without bias and discrimination and following ethical principles, it can positively augment businesses and society and create a brighter world for everyone.